Hey everyone, Internet PCS book reader here. Today I want to talk about Wolf Children by Mamoru Hosoda. Mamoru Hosoda is one of the many anime movie directors outside of Ghibli. I think he's in the three most famous ones, including Makoto Shinkai and Mario Okada. And among those three, Mamoru Hosoda is the one where people don't have any strong opinion about, which in art is not really what you want. Wolf Children itself is one of his best work, and here you can see aspects of his storytelling that is lacking that I'll go through later. Especially since this is the manga adaptation of the movie, so there is no good animation, music, or acting that can cover the weaknesses in the writing. I'll try to go through the story a little bit to set up what kind of storytelling we're dealing with and give some notes on what happens when it's done better in other title. The story starts with our three main characters playing in the snow, Ame, Yuki, and their mother Hana. But Ame and Yuki is not a normal children, they are wolf children, hence the title. We then immediately go back to the past to establish the story now. Hana had a crush on their father while in university. She tried to start a conversation with him by reminding him to check his attendance, but he's not actually a student there, he just came to study. She was about to give up when she saw him took care of falling children, so she decided to invite him to use her books in class at least. There's a little bit of main character falling in love just because they're main character here, but it's not as bad as love like falling battle, so it's all good I think. The story then gave us hints of their independence nature. Hana worked in a laundry until late to pay for school. The little detail showing us the clock here at almost 10 p.m. is while the nameless guy works in a moving company. Then we are shown some montages on how they got closer every time they meet, and then in an exposition time scene, Hana explained the meaning of her name, why she always smiles, and how in her father's funeral she chose to smile. They talk about moving together, so he showed Hana his true nature. He's a furry. Just kidding. He's half human, half wolf. Apparently it's because he's a Japanese wolf that are thought to be extinct. They had sex and when she found out she was pregnant, they decided to move in together. In another time skip montage, Yuki the first child is born, then the following season, Ame the second child is born. But one day he had an accident and their life together is cut short. After a moment of weakness, she decided that she'll raise their kids right. Here we have another time skip where Yuki has grown from a baby to a child that can talk. Hana quit her part-time job and school and tried to raise the kids with what little saving they have. She tried to continue her study on her own, breastfeed the kids, protect them from danger, clean up their mess. All of this without any help. She had to do all of this alone since she's afraid that people will find out that her kids are not human and they will take them away from her. And it got harder and harder to live in the city because of this. Her neighbors are not being understanding of her baby being a baby because the kids are making wolf noises. The landlord suspected that she's keeping dogs in the non-pet apartment. The child welfare is suspecting her of neglect since she avoided having the kids meet anyone in case they found out they're half wolf. So she finally decided to move with the kids to a remote village. They got the cheapest house that is far from everything and everyone, and they try to grow plants there on their own. The house needs a lot of fixing, but Yuki grew up to be strong-headed and Ame grew up to be a timid and scared kid in that house. And this element of the story is what makes the title become known. How amazing a mother Hana is to both kids despite everything else. It's in moments like this where the story doesn't skip all over the place is where it shines the most. This is also when we are introduced to the antisocial old grandpa. He's not really a bad guy, he's helping a ton, asking the neighbor to help out the new single mother, and he also teaches her how to actually grow crops. He's just bad at socializing. But in the small village, everyone helps everyone else there, so the family can finally thrive there. As Ami and Yuki grew, their identity became further apart from each other. After a lot of time asking to go to school, Hana finally relents and have both of them admitted to the local school. Yuki accepts being part of the community there, growing further and further from the habits she picks up as a child to be more girly in ways that society accepts. Meanwhile, after Ame hunts a bird and almost drowned from sleep up, he grew further away from human society, skipping school and spending his time in the wild more after meeting with the caged wolf. Ame and Yuki actually grew further apart enough for them to have a fight. Yuki found a friend that accepted her for who she is outside of her family, while Yuki decided to become a wolf, never to turn back to human. The story ends with another time skip. Ame never came back to the house and Yuki chose to go to school in the city. Hana looks back fondly to how she raised them until both of them are now able to live independently on their own. A lot of Mamoru Hosoda's film feels lacking just like this one. Let me try to explain. In Wolf Children that we've been through, there are so much question left behind on the story that should affect the story or the characters in the story, but just didn't. The ending is just Ame and Yuki leaving the house and in their own way becomes an independent individual. They are separated from their parent. They started having their own identity, which I think is done well enough to make it a good story. But there are just so much unresolved plot that are open throughout the story that is never addressed. Hana left Yuki alone at school when she should have picked her up from having to go to find Ame. What happened there? And what happened after Yuki gets home and find Ame missing? They spend years being siblings, and despite the myth of the lone wolf, wolves can actually die from loneliness if they're alone and separated from the pack. As the famous saying goes, wolf hunts in pack reason after all. Then what about the kind neighbors? Did everyone just accept that a kid went out of his own, no question asked? There's so much thread that should be threaded or whatever to make the story becomes more cohesive, but none of it was explored. Things just happen at random at the end of the story and then it just ended. It doesn't feel like the story is concluded, it just ended like a manga getting axed during its runtime. And it's not like this is an issue that only happened in this one Mamoru Hosoda's work. A lot of them just seem like he know what ending he wanted to have, but he's not clear on the way to go there or to what ending to have. Take for another example his latest movie, Belle, which is a reimagining of Beauty and the Beast. The main character is a girl grieving from the loss of her mother, meanwhile her dad doesn't know how to communicate with her daughter. She then joined a virtual reality world where she became Belle and started singing there. But most of the scenes in the story doesn't really connect well to each other, and only two scenes can be called amazing, the really funny confession scene and the emotional final song. Then the story rushes itself to conclusion with as many questions being open rather than answered, like both children. Again, it doesn't feel like the story has concluded, it just ended. And because of how the end part of the story was treated, a lot of the scenes that happen in between the start and the ending feel like they're just throwaway scenes that are there to pad some runtime of the movie. Meanwhile, try to compare Wolf Children with Maquia by Mario Okada. It's also a movie about motherhood with a lot of time skips, but every scene in that movie feels purposeful. It opens with showing clearly what kind of character Maquia is. Her race of immortals and the war that separated her from the rest of her kind, and her meeting with a mortal baby that she decided to pick up despite everything that she's been told not to. The story skips for years at a time, from when the baby turns into a child and then into an adult and finally when he's an old man, but you can feel the progression of the time in each time skip. How much the dynamics between the characters have changed during those skips even when we did not see them. It is so easy to fill in those blanks with our own imagination because all the context that we need is there in the story. Meanwhile, in Wolf Children, it feels like nothing happened when we don't see these characters. They stayed the same when we don't see them even after months and years have passed in between each time skip. Change only happen on screen, so the world doesn't feel like it moves when the characters are not on screen. They felt plastic and fake. You can see this more clearly when you start comparing the fantasy element in both Maquia and Wolf Children. Maquia is an immortal also because in the story, she's an unchanging mother figure to her child. From a children to an old man, a mother is a mother, even when that mother is Mario Okada's abusive mother that tried to stab her with a knife in her weakest moment. In Maquia, Maquia cannot be anything else but an immortal. Meanwhile, in Wolf Children, why is the children a wolf? The guy who became Hana's husband, who is nameless by the way, can be just a regular guy who got into an accident, and her moving to a small village can just be because she doesn't fit in society as a single mother who doesn't have any job. Most of the problem in the story that happen because of half wolf, half human issues feels easily replaceable with any other human problem that doesn't involve a half wolf, half human situation, and the story won't be that affected. Ame and Yuki at the end of the story can still just be regular boy and girl who choose a different path in life, and it will still be the same ending about children leaving the nest that is their mother's home. It's not a bad story by all means despite me being harsh on it. It's just frustrating if you see the potential of how great it can be if the story is handled just a little bit better. I think that's why in conversation about anime movies, Mamoru Hosoda tends to be sidelined even when he made good movies. It's because they're not to the point of being great. The manga adaptation is even more frustrating than the movie. They can add or change stuff so it'll be different, better even. But everything including all my frustration with the movie is preserved here. I don't really know who this manga is for except maybe the hardcore fans of either Mamoru Hosoda or Wolf Children, which I'm neither of those things. I give this a 3. What do you think? Let me know if I miss anything, so leave your thoughts in the comment below and subscribe to the channel. That's about it. See ya.